What if Tank Davis, who can punch, who is a hell of a fighter, who is the top 10 pound-for-pound fighter, what if he lands a punch on this bigger guy's chin, right, who's not a professional fighter? What happens?
They do it for real. Tank is highly capable of taking Jake Paul out. So the exhibitions that I like to see are ones that either I can mythically look at and say, wow, well, if he would have did that back when he was 10 years younger or 8 years or 12 years ago, he would have beat him. You understand me? Because we know boxing.
Which if he hits you because he's so accurate, he's gonna drop you or could put you to sleep. But like not necessarily power punch. Like Edwin De Los Santos is a hard hitter. He would even have a hard time with rollies. I'm not even kidding.
One boxing legends are breaking down why Gervonta Tank Davis would destroy Jake Paul in just 3 rounds. Gareth A. Davis says Tank's calm behavior during the press conference and face-off spoke volumes. He barely reacted to Jake's taunts about his height, staying silent and stone-faced. Gareth believes Tank looked hesitant, maybe even pushed into this fight, but once that bell rings, all that calm will vanish. He predicts Tank will explode with brutal combinations, shutting Jake Paul up before the 4th round even starts.
Went about the presser.
He reminded me of a northern football fan being dragged to a shopping centre on a Saturday afternoon rather than being allowed to go to his favourite Liverpool seat. You'll relate to that, won't you?
Yeah.
It was almost like he'd been shackled and dragged there against his will. Even when they faced off, it was as if Jake Paul had a bad smell about him or something. He didn't want to get near Jake Paul. He didn't want to... I'm just going to plug this in as well. I just realised it's not plugged in. It's almost as if he didn't want to indulge anyone at all. Like he'd signed up against his will, and then like he'd been signed up against his will. The agents and his manager and his handler had dragged him there without briefing him on what was going on and where it would be and what time it would take place. And there was this oaf in his mind standing there in front of him, this big oaf who kept posturing, and he just didn't do anything to him. I wondered at one point whether he was going to burst out with a combination of punches or something and just drop Jake Paul, who was being, measuring him up and going down to his height, and it was all very peculiar in my view. Like he really wasn't taking it seriously.
Ryan Garcia didn't hold back his anger over the Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis matchup. He called it a complete insult to boxing, highlighting how unfair the size and weight difference is. To him, this isn't a real contest, it's a sideshow built for clicks and cash, not respect. Ryan said boxing should be about skill, legacy, and honor, not social media hype. Watching a smaller fighter like Tank take on a much bigger opponent like Jake Paul and calling it competitive feels wrong to him. He says the message this fight sends to young fighters is dangerous. That hype and money matter more than discipline and respect. To Ryan, this isn't entertainment, it's a mockery of the sport he's dedicated his life to.
Mainly Jake's end, we're not falling for the Disney Channel bit no more. We're not falling for you're not a fighter no more. We're not falling for that. You're ranked as a cruiserweight and you're out here trying to fight a lightweight. And then on top of it, you were just talking about fighting Anthony Joshua. That doesn't make no sense. And, I just felt like it was a disgrace to boxing and kind of it was not a good move by Jake Paul. I understand people saying, Gervonta got to go get his money, blah, blah, blah. But, we're not talking about that shit. We're talking about the sport, bro. We're not talking about, you got to get that money, bro. Yeah, but everybody's open to criticism. That's the whole point of this media shit. That's why they talk about basketball players. They don't talk about, LeBron's making too much. Nobody cares, bro. If LeBron's missing the shot, he's missing the fucking shot. So at the end of the day, bro, I just thought it was a disgrace to the sport. Because on one end, you got the casuals, right? The casuals don't see the weight difference. They see Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis. Yeah. And if Gervonta Davis doesn't fuck up Jake Paul, they're going to think Jake Paul is some pound-for-pound champion type of fighter. Yeah. And to me, that's just... it's tricking the public, and it's kind of bullshit, bro, at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, if Gervonta was Jake Paul's size, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. There probably wouldn't even be a fight. Yeah, you know what I mean? So I just think that It's a disgrace to boxing.
Well, we got to play devil's advocate because people were saying, well, Ryan, you called out Jake Paul before too, so how would you say that? What do you have to say to the people that were saying that
Well,
to you?
I'm way bigger than Gervonta Davis. Gervonta Davis is 5'4", and his last fight was at 133. My last fight was 147. I walk around 170. So, I mean, 170 to 190, whatever, however big is not too much difference. But you got Gervonta Davis, he's actually really small. Like, when I fought him, like, he's small.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a very unfair fight. Nobody was complaining when Jake Paul was fighting Julio Cesar Chavez.
Right.
Nobody was complaining when he's fighting Anthony Joshua. And I still think Jake Paul's a cool dude. But shit, he's calling me out on my shit. I'm gonna call him out on his shit, bro. That's a fucking disgrace of a fight.
Yeah.
You know it. Just like Mike Tyson, low key was a disgrace, but we accepted it. But
Yeah.
he was 60 years old. I mean,
Right.
what the f we talking
he's
about
60.
here?
That's crazy.
3 Sean Porter views this fight through the eyes of a veteran as proof of how boxing has changed. He says today's generation is chasing paydays instead of glory. In his view, Gervonta Davis is now part of that group of fighters chasing money instead of legacy fights. Porter explained that true legends risked everything for greatness, fighting the best to make history. But now, fighters prioritize social media fame, brand deals, and fast money. He admits Tank is one of the most talented fighters alive, but says he's wasting his prime on spectacles instead of meaningful challenges. To him, Tank's decision to fight Jake Paul is a symbol of how boxing's soul is slowly fading in the shadow of entertainment.
But why are you doing that? How do you sort of see this scenario now for him?
Yeah, I don't really know how to feel about it, what to really say about it. I've only been asked this when it's presented to me. That's when I think about it. And I can't really come up with a good answer for it. In a lot of ways, it doesn't make sense to me. Of course, we know the size differential and the list goes on from there. I don't know, man. I think we're entering a generation now, or a phase now where fighters, I don't know if it's fighters, I don't know if he doesn't care about the legacy, or if he feels like this fight doesn't matter, I'll get back to the legacy. I just don't know. This is truly it's not a legacy fight, but of course it is a generational money fight, so.
Analysts argue that the problem isn't just the fighters, it's the audience too. They say today's fans feed into the circus. Real, technical fights between elite boxers often go unnoticed, while exhibition matches and influencer fights dominate headlines. They blame social media's short attention span for this shift. The Jake Paul effect, they say, isn't just Jake's fault, it's fans rewarding drama over skill. When viewers tune in for trash talk instead of technique, real fighters lose motivation to take risky, legacy-defining fights. Experts warn that this new fan-driven culture is blurring the line between sport and showbiz. Real champions fight for belts, influencers fight for clicks, and as long as the money flows, spectacle will keep winning over substance.
Boxing has evolved to where it's at. I'll expand on that. For one, you have good fights where I'm not talking about these type of fights, crossover type of fight, former Disney guy, influencer stuff, not. And Jake Paul has really promoted himself and acquitted himself to the point where he's kind of a boxer. Now, he hasn't fought the top names, I get it, blah, blah, blah. But he's doing his thing. He's training like a boxer. He's not like taking it lightly, like streaming and then working on his YouTube more than he's working on his boxing. It is what it is, right? But beyond that, let's keep it going. I told you I'm about to really get unpacked. Subscribe to the channel. The reality is, the reason why I'm saying I blame you, the fans, is because we've had some very good fights, like David Benavidez, Caleb Plant, whatever. I'm talking in the last 5-10 years, right? Very good fights, all boxing. So not talking influencer or any type of crossover fight, right? Good fights. And then you got boxing fans in a niche sport who didn't further the exposure by advertising or buying the fight, mostly buying the fight with piracy and whatnot. So now we're at a point in this society where these companies, they're like, all right, they see the piracy is a problem. Now they're looking for sure shot, must win type of scenarios. That's why we're getting these fights that some people, purists and diehards, are calling wonky fights. You know what I mean? It is your fault.
One major concern among professionals is the massive size difference between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis. Jake walks around at cruiserweight, while Tank's natural class is lightweight. Analysts say even though Tank is far more skilled, size and physics still matter. Reach, weight, and raw power can't be ignored. They warn that putting Tank against Jake in a sanctioned fight could be dangerous. Jake can take punches from bigger men and keep coming, while Tank, despite his knockout reputation, would have to fight uphill against a taller, heavier opponent. On paper, Jake has the size advantage and Tank has the speed and skill, but the imbalance makes the fight controversial, raising questions about whether boxing's rules are being bent just to sell pay-per-views.
He's better than Tank. I don't even know how you cannot have him better than Tank. People question Tank's resume anyway. But if you make Tank take a knee and they don't call it a knockdown and you still get the draw, you beat him. You beat Tank. And then you dominate Pitbull, one of Tank's best wins. Bruh, you better than him. The resume, listen, bruh. I didn't say greater, I said better. The resume means politics. Ryan was just saying it. Lamont Roach could have been on a back burner and they were holding him back, so he had to go down to 130, doing the grunt work like Marvelous Marvin Hagler, waiting for his time to shine. Resume, if the business chooses you, they can move you along right. He actually get cherry picked and he best Tank, and then he stops Pitbull. He's better. Y'all know how the business of boxing works. You just saw Terrence Crawford actually be the best fighter we've seen in decades. The man, Terrence Crawford, can arguably be better than Floyd Mayweather. Y'all saw the business shitting for all of his career, practically all of his career. And you see that he's better than Nello? What a surprise! We've been seeing a guy coming from lightweight can beat Nello at super middleweight.
Then Lamont Roach adds more fuel to the controversy by exposing the business side of things. He claims Tank was contractually supposed to go for a rematch with the top contender, but chose Jake Paul for the quick payday instead. Roach believes that shows Tank's priorities have shifted from legacy to luxury. He says true fighters honor their contracts and protect boxing's integrity. Roach admits Tank is a monster in the ring, but says decisions like this make fans question his hunger. Many believe Tank let money outweigh meaning, and that the missed rematch was a lost chance to silence his critics once.
Because if he did, even if this whole Jake situation was in the way, holler at me. Tell me you want to fight Jake. Tell me you got a bag coming up. All right, boom. Like,
go do it.
It's a way to handle that. We have a contract. You cannot breach a contract and think shit just gonna be sweet. You can't. You can't do that.
Right.
We have a contract. So it's not like this wasn't supposed to happen or whatever the case may be. And he just went and took the Jake route. We had a signed contract to fight. So him breaching the contract is, if y'all put yourself in my shoes, you gotta think, I'm looking forward to fighting and getting paid. I'm looking forward to fighting and winning so I could be two-time world champ. Me. I'm in training for a fight to be a champion in another weight class and for me to be crowned champion twice in my career. And this just go ghost and then end up announcing another fight. Put yourself in my shoes.
Did you find out just like the rest of us did?
Kinda. So I was on the fence because they didn't announce. They was like, all right, we're gonna announce. All right, we're gonna announce. All right, they're gonna announce every week. All right, we're gonna announce the fight. I'm like, all right, they on the bullshit.